The instant Wyatt's fingers came to rest on Melanie's bare skin, they both cursed, a mutual, almost silent hiss, too quiet for any of the crowd encircling the nearly empty dance floor to hear over the music. Their steps didn't falter, they didn't blink, but he didn't pretend he couldn't feel the jolt at the inevitable, unavoidable contact, and neither did Melanie. He smiled, a generic, just making conversation smile that would fool anyone besides the woman looking him directly in the eye. "Well, this is inconvenient." "Extremely," Melanie agreed. He didn't bother to move his hand. The cut of her emerald green halter-top bridesmaid dress left him with no alternatives other than her exposed back or her satin-covered butt. Her long, straight chestnut hair had been pinned into a tousled updo with tendrils that trailed down her neck, begging a man to twirl them around his fingers. Damn Violet for being the one woman on Earth determined to make her maid of honor look as hot as sin. As they circled the floor, eyebrows were raised and glances exchanged. He was aware of the picture they made. Him, blonde and elegant, at ease in the tuxedo that made the other cowboys tug at neckties and fidget with cummerbunds, her following his lead as effortlessly as if they'd been dancing together for years. They were sleek and athletic, glowing with the pheromones that had been accumulating molecule by molecule over the enforced proximity created by 2 days of the standard pre-wedding hullabaloo. Wyatt flicked a glance toward the bride and groom. So wrapped up in each other, they wouldn't have noticed if their attendance had broken into a tango. "Joe is the closest thing I have to a brother, even though he did have a male sibling." "Violet is my sister," Melanie countered. "Her family is my family." Even though her own parents were sitting at a table only a few feet away, pointedly ignoring each other. He studied the circle of faces that surrounded them, let his gaze settle for a beat on Joe and Violet, then focused on Melanie again, his voice hardening. "I'm not giving them up. I was here first," which was why his position was so much more precarious. He had only just found this weird and wonderful extended family that was more about loyalty than blood. Melanie's ties to them were forever. So this... His fingers flexed, creating a slight, dangerous increase in pressure. "Would be incredibly stupid, especially for us." She tilted her head in question. "You don't like me. You certainly don't trust me," he said. "Depending on the circumstances, you are a good friend to them. If you hadn't forced Joe to come to Texas in the first place, he'd still be in Oregon, instead of over there trying not to fall face first into Violet's cleavage, which is pretty damn impressive in that dress." Melanie smiled fondly at the two of them, then brought her gaze back to meet Wyatt's. "I've seen you risk life and limb for him in the arena." He shrugged. "I'm a bullfighter. You do what it takes to make sure the cowboy and your partner walk away." He didn't have to explain. She'd been on the rodeo trail long before she took her first steps, and her brother was also a bullfighter. But she shook her head. "You'd do the same for a complete stranger in a back alley. If I ever got caught in the middle of a convenience store robbery, you'd be the person I wanted standing at the Slurpee machine." "But not sitting across the breakfast table." She pursed glossy red lips as she considered the question. "It would be too crowded with you, me, and whatever agenda you're currently working. I'd have a hard time deciding where I fit into the scheme of the day." Says the woman who makes a living parting the unsuspecting public from their hard-earned dollars. Ouch. But the edge in her voice was more amusement than offense. "I'll have to tell human resources to add that to the job description." And this conversation is a perfect example of why we would be a disaster. Despite this... He traced a feather-light arc across her skin with his thumb. She let